Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of the Serenode Podcast. How are you doing, everybody? I am your host, Charlie Burke, also known as Techno Tenore here on the internet. And welcome to our very first episode of the Serenode Podcast. If you don't know, this podcast is a technology, gaming, and all-around nerd podcast about various things that I'm passionate about, particularly in the tech and gaming industry. And we're going to talk about all sorts of topics in relation to that. And occasionally we'll get political, touch some grass a little bit. More on that later. But thank you guys so much again for tuning into the show. So this is going to be a once-a-week podcast. Every Monday morning, I'll have a pre-recorded episode uploaded. I'll also upload various clips of different segments from that episode throughout the week after the initial upload, just in case you don't want to watch the whole VOD or the whole, sometimes hour-plus episode all in one sitting. I'll be sure to have all that content split up for everybody. But overall, this is a little passion project of mine, a little side hustle. I'll get more into, shilling later, but if you would like to follow me on my socials, I have my link tree in the description of this video, and also right here, I also have my Stream Elements link, so you can tip and donate to me. Financial donation is 100% not necessary. If you are able to donate and have it not financially hurt yourself, that's up to you. Overall, just any sort of comment, or sharing the video with anybody out there is probably the most important thing for such a new show, because I currently have very small following, and as we get bigger, a lot more opportunities are going to come. So I'd rather see the community come out to support me by liking this video, sharing this video with friends, family, whoever you think will be interested in this type of podcast, and also following me on my various accounts. I'll also be live streaming at night sometimes. It's more of a loose schedule in terms of the live streams. I will update you guys on my social medias, such as my Blue Sky and X account. But without further ado, let's get into this past week's technology news and gaming news. So, last week was a big week. CES happened, which is the Consumer Electronics Show. It is the one big electronic show of the year where it generates a lot of excitement and buzz about upcoming tech for the year and beyond. And it was a big one this year. Particularly, the two big things I'd say were the most prevalent were AI and handheld PCs, which I am very much a fan of the latter as opposed to the former. But in terms of all the big hitters when it comes to the processor market, AMD, Intel, and Nvidia were out here strong, showing their various different new processors in their various series, like the Ryzen series. They have their 9950X 3D and their 9900X 3D. Let me zoom this in a little bit for you. So these are their high-end chips with extra 3D V cache. These are very fantastic for gaming. So if you're looking to build a new computer this year, these will probably be your best bet, because that extra 3D V cache will help with game performance. And obviously you don't have to get the most high-tier version. They had the I believe it was the 8900X 3D, the lower tier version. But even before these come out, the Ryzen 7 X3D that came out recently is still the most powerful gaming GPU on the market. So even if you get something lower tier than this of what's about to come out, you'll probably save a bit of money, and it'll still be plenty good of a processor for you. Also, they announced the new Z2 series for their handheld gaming PCs. We're going to get more into that later, but I'm very excited for that, especially with the new Lenovo's. They came out swinging with that. And you also have the 900HX series of mobile processors, so you'll have various laptop processors here as well. Strangely, undiscussed in the keynote was the GPU launches for AMD. Obviously, they have a hard time competing with NVIDIA overall, but they did have a bit of a name change. They have the Radeon RX 9070 and the Radeon RX 9070 XT. And this obviously goes in line with more NVIDIA's line of GPUs, because you have like the RTX like 4070, 4080, 4080 Super, and like whatever combination of numbers that's supposed to mean something to the consumer, even though we barely have any idea. Just sometimes you just assume bigger number means better performance. In this case, the 9070 XT and 9070 are relatively mid-range compared to anything NVIDIA has to offer, but apparently it's actually doing pretty well in terms of tests. That's definitely something to look into, because usually when it comes to FPS for dollar, AMD is definitely better than NVIDIA. NVIDIA definitely has the market cornered on the higher-end GPUs, as well as things like DLSS and AI upscaling, frame gen, all those other technologies that go in with their GPUs. And Intel as well was also there with their various announcements between the Core Ultra 200HX and H series mobile processors, same with the laptops and all that. You also have the 200U series mobile processors. You have all these AI processors that are going to be helpful for a lot of people's workflows. In terms of that, AI has definitely taken center stage in this year's CES. It's just so prevalent. It's the big buzzword of tech recently, and for better or for worse, AI is here to stay, and there are plenty of good aspects about it, but there are also plenty of bad ones. Personally, I like the fact that it actually helps the creative process for some artists. I also love how it helps with a lot of machinery and other things that could be helpful for factories or whatnot. But also, I don't like the art stealing aspect of generative AI when it comes to learning data and sending people's hard work to an algorithm, and then it just spits out random garbage based on what prompt you give it. I just don't, that's obviously not the ethical side of AI that I'm a fan of. But one of the big things with AI this year was also NVIDIA. They have NVIDIA Cosmos. It's a platform state-of-the-art generative world foundation models that allows you to run AI simulations for various things in a simulation. And this will allow AI learning to become more streamlined and more efficient, allowing a lot of manufacturers or engineers able to use these programs to have the learning data learn faster, learn more efficiently, learn with a lot less, financial struggle trying to get the learning data overall. And that's what I found very interesting about this. It seems like a very interesting tool that is going to help with the advancement of these learning algorithms that are powering this AI. Generative AI specifically. It's not like, the AI you see in the movies. It's more so an AI that outputs something based on like hours upon, petabytes of learning data that it allows it to function. On top of that, you see that in hardware too. Samsung has been going ham on a lot of their home AI innovations as well. You obviously have their mobile lineup and everything else, but everything from TVs to washing machines to refrigerators, it's kind of intense how much like AI, especially with Samsung leading the charge, that they've kind of taken over the like AI appliances space when you don't really think it would need that type of thing. With TV, it's very interesting because the TVs now seem to have a lot of different AI features that allow with Vision AI, you can look up a lot of stuff on the TV as you're watching something. Like click to search offers instant information about what's on screen, live translate, generative wallpapers. Like it's all sorts of insane stuff coming out of AI that's just going to be in our everyday hardware in the future. And, it's the type of thing that I don't even know how much I'd actually get use out of it, because I'm someone that doesn't mind looking stuff up on his phone if I don't know an actor or I don't know like a specific part of the story in like a TV show or a movie, I usually don't mind looking it up on my phone, especially if I'm in the comfort of my own home. The episode ends and I could just look it up before I move on to the next episode. They also have the AI fridge, and it says innovative refrigerator revolutionizes the way of cooling with the Peltier module, which contributes to efficient energy use with AI algorithm. So they're cooling the food with AI now. Let's hope our food doesn't go bad, and hopefully that doesn't lead to a lot of lawsuits. Crossing my fingers for that. What's more important to me, however, is that they recently, in the keynote, they announced their Galaxy Unpacked, which is going to be for their smartphones, obviously. That's what their Unpacked is for. And it seems like it's going to be a pretty good year for AI and also AI phones and all types of AI technology overall. And it seems like it's just kind of moving forward for better or for worse. And in terms of phones, I'm definitely due for an upgrade. I've been rocking the same Note 20 Ultra for a while now. I love it, but it's definitely showing its age. Battery's running out a bit quicker these days. And also, I'll probably run out of some of the software and security features by the end of this year. So I'm definitely due for an upgrade, I think. Let me know what you plan on upgrading to, if you have any upgrade plans for your phone or for your computer. Like, let me know what tech you guys are most genuinely interested in this year. I'd really love to know. On the subject of AI, though, this one is particularly more in the gamer end. We're going to talk about NVIDIA GPUs. And the RTX 50 series was announced at CES this year. And you have the final prices being the following. The RTX 5070 is $549, pretty standard low mid-range GPU. You have the 5070 Ti at $749. You have the 5080 at $1,000, which is essentially their flagship-ish, but the big boy is obviously the RTX 5090. It will be a whopping $2,000, and that is quite expensive for GPU. A lot of people were actually expecting the prices to be higher overall because of how much NVIDIA kind of likes to jack up the price based on not only just the fact of like the raw hardware they're putting in there and the brand being essentially having this brand tax, but you also have the claims about their AI software, their AI upscaling, and their frame generation technology that is helping these GPUs along a bit in terms of performance. So what Jensen on stage essentially said was that the RTX 5070 will deliver RTX 4090 type performance at essentially a third of the price. And this is obviously with a huge asterisk. The RTX 5070, I believe, is a 12 gigabyte VRAM GPU, and the 4090 is a 24 gigabyte VRAM GPU. How is this possible, you ask? Well, with their RTX software, the DLSS 4, both features, which are the AI upscaling and the AI frame generation, give you better performance in games for the most part. And people have their mixed feelings about AI upscaling and AI frame gen, where people say it's fake frames or it's just not the native experience. And to those people, I do support your personal preferences on what you do with your hardware. That is perfectly fine. You can do everything natively, and that's totally okay. But in terms of it being fake frames or just a pointless tech, I don't think it's that pointless, especially when you have, apparently, the RTX 5070 delivering 4090 performance under certain circumstances. Now, while obviously this is relatively misleading marketing, that you're obviously, in terms of raw power, you're not getting there, and the software is sort of a stopgap for a lot of those things, you also neglect the fact that in terms of raw performance, combined with something like DLSS 3.5, which is on the previous GPUs, the 4090 would smoke the 5070 if it actually had the AI software helping it out. And this is definitely something where I have mixed feelings. I actually pulled this up on this video. Essentially, in terms of AI upscaling and AI frame gen, AI upscaling essentially takes a lower resolution image that the GPU is rendering and upscaling it, allowing it to look better on, for example, like your 1440p monitor. Your graphics card might be rendering it at 720p and then upscaling it to 1440. And you can't notice the difference that much when it comes to DLSS upscaling. But FrameGen is a different story because FrameGen essentially inserts frames in between the frames you would be normally rendering with the graphics card with an AI algorithm. And that has mixed results for a lot of people in particular. The upscaling, I think, is a bit different with a lot of people. I think people do enjoy the upscaling tech a little bit more. But in terms of frame gen, it definitely sees a bit of its own criticism in the tech world. And what we see here is the DLSS 4 being exclusive to the 50 series. And obviously, the company has to advertise their products with something new. But at the same time, I can't help but feel that in terms of, the actual DLSS 4, that instead of being treated as this relatively useful technology for graphics processing, it is often used as a sort of, twist of the arm for you to buy the next big GPU. And obviously, for someone like me who's been rocking a 2070 Super for the past 5 years, I'm definitely due for an upgrade. I think I would probably get a 5080 if I got a new graphics card, because I definitely want at least 12 gigs of VRAM, and the 5080 is about 16 gigabytes, and it's a pretty fast card overall. I probably wouldn't even consider the 5090 because I'm poor. But it still doesn't sit right with not only me, but a lot of other gamers, PC gamers in particular, that these types of features like DLSS 4 are walled away to the new hardware in order to make a profit when they could be just as useful on older hardware. Because this software can be used on other series GPUs. It could be put on the 40 series or the 30 series, but they just decide not to do it because obviously they want to sell the new GPU. And there are plenty of, well-off people or people that have nothing really better to spend their money on, and they will go buy the 5090. And obviously that doesn't sit well with someone who actually needs to pay bills. So overall, I'd say the AI tech for DLSS is very useful. I think it is a very good feature and software to use with GPUs, and it will only help hardware. But if companies like NVIDIA continue to sort of jack up the price and leave these features exclusive for that reason, a lot more gamers and PC enthusiasts and people who build PCs will be ever more increasingly upset with the fact that they have to go out and buy the latest and greatest in terms of hardware when the software is right there that could help something that's already, still good. So that's what I think overall in this situation. Obviously, a lot of the performance metrics, like we have these are on NVIDIA's website, so take them with a grain of salt because when the reviews come in, they might be different. But it seems like there's generally a lot of increase in performance all around, but I am skeptical in terms of just pure raw performance because a lot of this is, DLSS and ray tracing. DLSS 4 and, all the AI techniques that are allowing these processors to reach new heights, essentially. So, obviously, we have to wait for reviews to come in, and hopefully I can get my hands on a 5080 or, be able to build a PC in general this year. But, yeah, that's pretty much it on the NVIDIA end. Good tech. Don't think it's as useless as people are making it out to be, but I don't like the fact that NVIDIA are walling it off for the sake of profit when they already are one of the most valuable companies in the world right now. Yep. Now, next up, we have an absolute blowout when it comes to PC handhelds. Obviously, you had a big showing from Lenovo, who was sort of center stage in all of this. But before we get into Lenovo and some of the big announcements that they made, I do want to get into some of the smaller hardware. So, Acer announced two variations of their handheld called the Nitro Blaze 8 and Nitro Blaze 11. And this is based on, them being an 8-inch screen and an 11-inch screen. And I'll tell you, an 11-inch screen for a handheld is absolutely ridiculous. Like, you might as well just get, like, a GPD Win Max, which is like a mini laptop at this point, if you're going to get an 11-inch screen. So it's kind of wild that they're making, such a big screen when I think in terms of specs, it's not really going to deliver. Like, you have a last-gen CPU that is, a little outdated compared to the competition that's going to be coming out. You have only 16 gigabytes of RAM, which, if anything, the ROG Ally X has proved we definitely need more than 16 gigabytes of RAM, even in PC handhelds. So, 24 is like the absolute minimum at this point. And it seems like, let me see the battery, because I believe the battery wasn't that great either. Yeah, it's a 55-watt battery, and the battery doesn't increase from the 8-inch to the 11-inch. So this is definitely a weird one. I think they're just kind of leaning into the fact that they have a handheld that has an 11-inch screen, but I don't think this one is going to do that well overall. Next up, here's the hand size comparison to the Nitro Blaze 11. Holy crap. I have big hands, and my hands probably don't look that much larger compared to this person's right here. All right, next up, we have Zotac with their Zotac Zone 2. The Zotac Zone 1 actually came out a few months ago, or at least a few weeks ago. It hasn't really shown its way to the United States just yet. I believe it's just Europe for now. And what the Zotac Zone had between the OLED screen, the dual trackpads, and a few other features, it seemed really cool. And it's a shame that it was, underpowered upon arrival, the original, which is behind this big guy right here, that it was a little bit behind in terms of tech, but it had some features, it even had a webcam, which I find to be particularly interesting. Imagine doing an IRL stream on this thing. And just having your face in that camera, that'd definitely be something very interesting if someone would ever try that. I'd actually give it a watch. But we have the specs down here. We have 32 gigabytes of memory. That's good. Again, the AMOLED multi-touch display, 1080p, 120 hertz. At this screen size, you don't need anything above 1080p, and we'll get into that later with Lenovo because there's a bit of a debate around that, especially in comparison to the first Lenovo Legion Go. But 48.5 watt hour battery, still a little bit more than the Steam Deck, but not by that much. Yeah. Big question is when the first one is going to ever hit the US, and if it ever does, and hopefully this one hits in time to, make some waves in the handheld space, because right now in the States, it's mostly ROG, Ally, and Lenovo Legion Go. Speaking of the Lenovo Legion Go, this week was huge for the Legion Go, as well as SteamOS as well, because the Legion Go S, particularly the blackish purple model here, is going to be the first out-of-the-box SteamOS experience. And if you don't know what SteamOS is, it's Valve's operating system for the Steam Deck. So right here, I have the Steam Deck. This has its own operating system that is based off of Linux. So you never really have to touch the desktop at all on this thing. And it makes it more of an appealing experience to a more casual PC gamer, especially if you're not playing the latest and greatest and playing a lot of classic indie games and all other types of games that aren't that demanding. You would probably play it on something like this. And it can still play the most powerful, the most demanding games. I played so much of Elden Ring on here last year. It's insane. But in terms of the new Lenovo Legions, the Legions of Legion Goes, you have the Windows version, which is in white, that will be coming out later this January or early February. And then the SteamOS version will come out in May. There is a bit of an asterisk for that because there are two processor options for the Legion Go S. There is the newly announced from AMD, the Ryzen Z2 Go, and the Z1 Extreme. And you'd think with Z2 it's more powerful than the Z1 Extreme. It is not. The Z2 Go is definitely useful in terms of battery optimization, that it's more meant for, power saving, and it'll probably be a bit more of a power saver and battery saver in the long run than the Z1 Extreme, but the Z1 Extreme is still the more powerful chip. In fact, I think even the Z2, which is the base chip, is about the same as the Z1 Extreme. So I would, the thing I don't understand is why they would have the Z1 Extreme versions come out in May when people are going to want the Windows version. Some people will want the Windows version over the SteamOS version. They'll probably download something like Bazite or download SteamOS on their own time, but they want some of the, features of Windows because there's some games you can't play on Steam that have anti-cheat that Steam doesn't support, or, they're exclusive to different clients like the Epic Game Store. So that's definitely something to think about, but I don't get why they would hold off the more powerful CPU until May, along with the SteamOS version, when they could have had both at either launch. Let's be perfectly honest. But the big daddy here is the Lenovo Legion Go 2. And this is the one I'm definitely going to get. Unless the ROG Ally comes out, or ROG Ally 2 comes out and puts this thing to shame, I am definitely getting this one because it's got the new Z2 Extreme processor, which is ridiculously powerful. It has the RDNA 3.5 graphics, 32 gigabytes of RAM, a 16x10 144 hertz OLED with VRR. This has been the big debating point with handheld PC gamers in the past few months of what is the best type of display? Do you want OLED for those nice colors and the HDR? Do you want high refresh rate? Do you want 16x10, 16x9? Or do you want refresh rate on an IPS? Because there were some issues with OLED and variable refresh rate working together. Apparently there were some issues, but it seems like, at least as far as Lenovo is concerned, they're putting OLED and VRR on one display, which I think is fantastic. It's definitely going to be the best of both worlds in that case. And if there are still issues with variable refresh rate on OLED, you can always turn it off, which it's nice to have the option. But the Lenovo Legion Go 2 is definitely at the top of my list in terms of, anticipated handhelds. And yeah, I am very excited for this one. I think the big thing is that there is going to be a downgrade in resolution from the Legion Go 1. The Legion Go 1 had a 1600p display. This one's only going to have 1200p, which I think is a worthy sacrifice to not only bring down the price, but, having an OLED with VRR and on a screen this big that's only about 8.5 inches, 8.8 inches, 1600p and 1200p don't have much of a difference, and it's kind of a waste on a screen that size. So I think this is probably going to be the one to beat, and hopefully Asus brings their A game with the ROG Ally 2, because they were mysteriously absent in terms of handhelds this year. I know they came out with the ROG Ally X a little bit later last year, but it definitely felt like something was missing from this whole, menagerie of handhelds, where I could have easily seen the ROG Ally 2 and the Legion Go 2 butting heads, but I guess that is unfortunately something we did not see this past week. Overall, next we have the granddaddy handheld of them all. This is the other handheld I'm excited about this year. The Switch 2 will be revealed this week. I'm going to press X to doubt for now, but there is some credibility to this. It comes from a pretty reliable insider who has his own podcast, Nate the Hate. His podcast is very good, by the way. If you go to Nate the Hate on YouTube, it's essentially been a years-long podcast about, speculating about new gaming tech, particularly when it comes to the Switch 2, or even back then when it was called the Switch Pro, and it was just going to be a mid-gen upgrade. And he said, I can share with you that Nintendo Switch 2 will be revealed in the coming week. I have been told Switch 2 will be revealed on Thursday, January 16th, just a few days from now. It says, I've heard the reveal itself is going to focus almost exclusively on the console itself. There's not going to be any presence of games. There could be a game shown running on screen depending on how the trailer is put together, but the software is not going to be the focus. So we had something similar to this back when the initial Switch was revealed back in 2016. They didn't show any official games or game titles. They just showed the games on screen of like whatever game that was going to be, and then we figured out what those games were later when they had their presentation in January of 2017. So I think we're going to have a very similar hardware-focused trailer that focuses on all the features, the physical look of the console, maybe some type of new feature that is genuinely Nintendo. So this is definitely a thing to look out for this week. I am so excited for it to finally be revealed because this has been years in the making, ever since it was just called the Switch Pro. And this thing has been rumored and rumored and rumored for years, and has been leaked and leaked and leaked for several months now. And it seems like we're finally going to reach the end this week. I hope. Genuinely hope. In terms of the Switch 2, I don't really have any other complaints. This is a mock-up somebody made based on some of the factory leaks. We know the factory leak was real because someone actually wrote in the serial code for one of the Joy-Cons on Nintendo's website and actually revealed it to be true. So this is around what the Switch 2 is going to look like. You have a more rounded dock. You're going to have a Switch that is slightly bigger than the current Switch. 8-inch screen. I believe the screen's not going to be OLED, but that isn't much of a loss if we want to keep the cost down. And apparently there's been a lot of other features that have been leaked or dumped, whether it is their upscaling tech, since the chip inside the Switch 2 is going to be an NVIDIA chip. The DLSS is probably going to have a big presence in this hardware so that Nintendo can, keep games running well at good resolutions, whether they're upscaled or not. And they'll be able to, deliver a more quality experience even when it comes to third parties, I think, which is something I think they definitely need to do. I definitely want to do a bit of a lightning round of all the rumors on stream this week. If you want to join me on my live streams, please do. This will probably be one of the big topics we talk about first. But overall, I'm excited for the Switch 2. I'm not really expecting anything game-wise. I'm just expecting them to finally show it and, see what it's all about. Maybe announce a Switch presentation similar to the one we had back 7 years ago. God, it's been 7 years. But, yeah, that is the Switch 2 in a nutshell, I think. All we have to do is wait. Hey, sorry for the jump cut there. I decided to save my last segment that was supposed to be for this episode for a bit of a bigger video, especially with some things going on in current events. I kind of want to be up to date with it. So I'm going to suss things out, essentially, and I will be back with a bigger video, hopefully before the next episode of the podcast. So thank you guys so very much for watching, and if you would like to support me, you can either donate with the Stream Elements link right there, or you could follow me on my various social medias through my link tree, also right there. I will have it on screen during the podcast, so if you ever want to follow or you ever want to support, donations aren't necessary at all. If it financially hurts you, don't feel like you have to. What's better at this point is subscribing to the YouTube channel, following me on Twitch, following me on all my other socials, like this video, share it with friends and family. And yeah, that's pretty much it. You can also ask questions in the donation link as well. So if you'd like to ask me a question, I can answer them in the next episode of the podcast. At least that's what I'm planning to do as we go further along, to have sort of a Q&A segment. So I think that'll be pretty exciting. But thank you guys so very much for watching. I will see you guys next Monday. Have a good one.